Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of the Future Proof Podcast. I'm your host, Brent Muller. Got a very exciting guest today, and we're looking forward to talking to Ryan here in a second. For those of you watching the podcast or just joining, we're a SaaS growth company, and we specialize in helping B2B companies scale their revenue. We built our own AI-powered platform that gets very good, high-quality appointments compared to what's out there. So if you want to learn more, you want to take your business to the next level, make sure you stick around. And if you're interested in just a free growth consult with us, just drop the word growth in the comments or DM us, and we'll get you all set up. But let's jump in today's episode. So we're joined today by Ryan Massie from Syssero. Ryan, how are you doing?
Doing great today.
Awesome. So we always start off every episode with the founder's journey. So talk to us. You're a co-founder of Syssero. Talk to us about everything leading up to that.
Sure. I would say that it's a very non-traditional path. So I'll walk you through a bit of that journey.
And by the way, Ryan, almost everybody says that same thing. You're not gonna I'm all over the map.
Very true, but I think you'll see some of that uncommonness right out of the gate. I did not come to technology or the Workday platform where we specialize in any traditional means. I did not come from the HR direction. I didn't come from the IT direction, the financial direction. I used to be a professor of fine arts and teacher outside of Chicago for over a decade. So I was an educator. I was in academia. I was an artist as well. And about well over a decade at this point, I had my firstborn daughter, June, and I loved what I was doing, but I was working all the time and I wanted to be able to be home with her. But ultimately, I also wanted to be able to provide her dance lessons if she wanted dance lessons and gymnastics lessons if that was her heart's desire. And
which is not cheap, by the way.
Which is not cheap. None of those things are cheap. And
I have 3 daughters, so I know.
Yeah. When you're in the arts and you become a dad for the first time and you're looking at that roadmap. I love teaching. I love the performing arts. I worked in Chicago, was directing, performing in Chicago, and was also teaching at a number of universities in the greater Chicago area. But contrary to popular belief, you don't make a lot of money in the arts, and you don't make a lot of money in education, higher education either, the kind of double nullifiers, I like to say. So I thought, there has to be a different application for my particular skill set and desire to help others in that realm, because I really love the teaching aspect. And the reason I went down that direction was ultimately to help people get to the place where they wanted to be in this creative, nebulous type of field. So my family, we moved from the Chicago area to be closer with our firstborn to family, because it's greater to raise kids in a tribe.
Amen to that, by the way.
The DFW area, yeah. And I've had opportunities to continue that higher education direction, but someone approached me about a job in kind of the talent headhunting space. And they said, your job is to recognize talent, cultivate, curate talent, place talent in a database, and position it with opportunity. And I was like, well, I understand talent. I mean, I've been teaching talent. I can assess that pretty quickly. I can kind of find what's going on. And it had the promise of making a lot of money and doing a lot of things for my family. But once I got in, it was 150 dials a day, cold calling, just an absolute grind, 60 hours work a week. And all the areas where you really could make money at that time in the Salesforce realm, in the SAP realm, it was technology-based enterprise applications, SAP, Oracle, all of these things, they already had established recruiters and established talent that was primed for that. I needed to find a new area. So I went to my manager and I said, listen, give me 30 days. I need to find a different technology. I need to find the next technology in this wave. And I need to find a talent base there to place with that opportunity. I'm not going to meet any of your metrics. I'm not going to do anything that you're asking me to do. I'm not going to be doing 100 dials a day. I'm going to be more targeted. I'm going to be more relational based. I'll have great phone time, I promise you, and I'll get a lot of leads and opportunities out of it. 30 days go by and I do that, and I recognize it's Workday. Workday's where this is going. And my leadership said, no, we don't believe in the Workday application because it automatically updates 2 times a year. We don't have the steady upgrades or new implementations. You have to be an implementation partner to do that work. It's a closed ecosystem. So there's not a lot of dollars there. And I said, I disagree.
Yeah.
I would like to give me another 30 days and I'll do both sides of the house. I'll run a 360 desk. I'll do the sales as well as the talent identification. That's where I came in, and Amber Lowry, my business partner, where we kind of met cross paths. She had this very unique journey inside of Workday that I still have yet to see anybody have, where she worked for the mothership of Workday, then was at an implementation partner, then was at a Fortune 100 company in a director, leadership type of position as an employee using the Workday platform. And then she was a hired gun, an independent contractor. And so she'd seen every facet of this ecosystem.
Right.
She was a great talent. I put her on a number of projects in my time at this previous organization. And she kept just chiming in my ear and saying, hey, I feel like you're built a little bit different because of where you've come from.
Right.
You're really relational based. I have an idea to build a company of Workday talent that is solely comprised of people on the end client side. I've been on that side, and there's a lot of incredible talent over there that are not getting the fair look in the ecosystem, these opportunities, because they don't come with an IBM badge or 40 implementations under Deloitte or that type of pedigree. They have a different pedigree. And I think that you can create a story around that. So she was speaking a lot into my language and things that I love to do.
Right. Stories are probably natural for you. Relationships are probably natural for you. That's fantastic.
And the story, being able to create and craft a story and a narrative to go to market and say, we are simply a collection of past end customers seeking to be the help that we wish we had. That's it. And we can do that from a business perspective, and we could do that from a technology perspective, and we could really plug into your environment and be a temporary extension of your existing team in unique ways. We're just like you, just 8 years down the road of self-sufficiency in Workday. But we've been total rewards directors, we've been payroll managers, we've been benefits managers. We know the pressures that you're under and the culture that you work within. And we've sat in that seat. And if we were to do it differently, here's what we would do. And so that was kind of the genesis. And so I left that organization and banded up with Amber in 2016, 2017, and started to create this lovely company, this collective called Syssero.
It's awesome. Awesome. I love it. And there's so many things I want to dive into there, but let's go now to, your journey with Syssero.
Yeah.
And talk to me about your outlook and, going forward.
Sure. As far as the journey with Syssero, are you wanting to hear more about the evolution of the years of Syssero?
Yeah. Just the kind of the last 8 years, like what it's been like and how you've got, grown the company and what you're focused in, because you guys are really specialized in Workday. But to your point, like you have this relatability of you've sat in every chair, because for everybody out there that's, listening, Workday is a comprehensive HR platform. And, again, if you don't know, but it touches so many different things. So it's on the HR side, it's the equivalent of what SAP is on the ERP side, right?
Yeah, and the finance side as well. Workday has a very strong financial application as well. It's very robust, and in a lot of ways, Workday does say it's infinitely configurable, not customizable. So there's a weird kind of contrast there, that there's a lot that you can do with the application. And to talk about the evolution of Syssero, there's a lot you can do with that application, but it comes down to the people that are advising, helping, assisting, training you. And so that really leads me to our three uniques here at Syssero and the codification of them. One is that talent that we talked about in the beginning, like that's where we started. I need to find talent that understands best practice with Workday, but has an in-practice perspective. They've owned the thing. They've not just built it and walked away.
Yeah.
They've not just given consulting services, washed their hands and said, I think this is good, and then gone on to another client. Yeah. They have owned the ROI on the client side, and they've sat in those meetings, those committees of, weighing the complexity or simplicity of the projects and the investments and those type of things. They have that perspective. There's a lot of things that Workday can do. And Workday was designed initially to be a competitor against SAP and Oracle, to go after the Wells Fargo, the JP Morgan Chases of the world, and so forth. But as Workday began to gain that market share, they started to go down market, medium enterprise, smaller organizations. Okay, how does best practice work here? And
Right.
that's where we've really found our stride. So in that first unique of getting in the talent that has best practices from an in-practice perspective, we found that voice was most impactful for medium businesses that had lean teams that could not add to headcount. They had never seen the complexity of this type of thing before. They were working on green screens and paper sheets for time tracking and so forth before. So this was a very cataclysmic shift for them. Who better to help them through that shift than a future version of themselves? So that was really where we began. The next thing we had to do is think about the distinct service offerings that are within the Workday ecosystem and using that second differentiator.
Right.
Using the unique workforce that we have, designing service offerings from that customer experience. So if we think of application managed services, a lot of organizations do that. And a lot of our people, our consultants who have been in clients have operated under that type of contract. Well, they had an experience of things that worked well, things they would retain, but also some things they would change and some things they would evolve. And so we started there in saying, how could we do more MRR recurring revenue as an organization to protect the greater Syssero organization while also giving value to the end customer in a very unique way? So our AMS started to incorporate projects of any size. There was no red tape in the contract language that says anything over 40 hours is not covered under this agreement. It's a separate statement of work. It's a separate. Well, when you're a customer and you're signing up for one of these type of support packages,
nuts, right?
you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so you need something that is empathic. It sounds weird to say. You need a contractual document that has empathy embedded in it.
Yeah. It's almost an oxymoron.
Weird. It's a weird statement to say, but that's what we sought out to do.
Yeah.
And then we started to think about different service offerings that didn't exist holistically. So evolving existing service offerings that were in the marketplace and then looking at new ones that would be of value, like our LEAP services, our Launch Enhancement Assistance Program. And it's kind of how we fold around a deployment on the client side to ensure success from their responsibilities, because the SI has their mandate and their scope of work and they're talking about best practice. But we have that in practice perspective to say, yes, and it can do this, and we can work with that on a phase 2 type of thing, or help you with training and documentation and knowledge transfer, because you chose not to use that because it added to your cost with the SI. But we'll be here and we can do that at a reduced cost and kind of help along the way, teach you how to fish, really.
Yeah.
So it was an evolution of different service offerings, perm placement. I run into incredible people that I would hire in a heartbeat. Not a lot of consulting organizations really dabble in perm placement, but when we were seeing these incredible talents that we would hire right away, they just didn't want to be consultants. They have the seniority, they have the in-client background, they had everything that makes them kind of the Syssero brand, but they wanted a home. So trying to find a way to monetize that line and help clients that were getting duped by those who had Workday exposure and not Workday expertise because they only knew what they knew at the time.
Right.
That was an evolution of our business as we keep growing different service offerings. And that's kind of our second unique is comprehensive service offerings within the Workday ecosystem designed by and for end customers. The last unique that we have is ownership amplified, ownership personified, however you like to think of it, is ultimately we want to get our clients to a place of self-sufficiency. I started this with our go-to-market strategies to be the help we wish we had. Well, we wish we had routinely consultants and structures in place that would help us get to a place of self-sufficiency. And a lot of our consultants had to really fight that battle on their own through communities, through just to get creative with that. We've embedded structures of self-sufficiency and ownership within our service offerings. And that's our mandate, is to really pass on that knowledge that was hard fought for our people to the future generation of Workday talent and just let it roll from there.
Really, really, really cool. And so you're taking the consulting model and almost giving it a heart. And I think that that's a really, really cool thing. I mean, I've done management consulting for a long time and I totally get what you're talking about. And I've experienced this myself in some of the things you're talking about, where at some point the client wants to be self-sufficient or and to be able to retain some of that talent. So the fact that you have created those bridges is pretty remarkable because most consulting firms, don't do that. They put the wall around and there's very, very rigid frameworks about,
Yeah.
what you can and can't do.
And I think it's important to say, yes, we have built that, but you'll see in posts that I've written, it's almost in everything that I've written, kind of live by this thing that I had in academia when I was training artists, that the work is never done, it's only due. Like there is, I believe that curation is equally, if not more important than creation, that we have to continue to refine and get better at what we do. The application, the Workday application changes, the ecosystem changes, things happen to that degree, and you have to adapt. And I think that's one of our greatest strengths is, yeah, it does have heart. I hope it does. And because we don't know how to do it any other way,
Right.
because we have been on that in-client side where there was a lack of heart, and I don't find them to be mutually exclusive. I think that they absolutely can be combined together. And maybe that's a part of my background as a teacher, wanting to equip and do the responsible thing and giving all the knowledge and tricks and tools over to that customer. Or
Really
that
cool.
student.
Really, really cool. So, Ryan, talk to us a little bit about what you've seen, the evolution of the industry in general, right?
Yeah.
And then kind of where do you see it going?
Well, I definitely see a lot. I would say all tech stack industries are moving in the thread of AI driving, and really that being, and there's value to it, absolutely, and there is a lot left to be mined in those hills, and I think that people are looking for it. I think that the market is ready for it. I think that to what I was talking about with our organization and that empathy and the heart underneath it, I think there's a companion that needs to be there with AI. As a teacher, I used to talk about real craft, and I would put the definition up there, and you can see where the AI kind of comes in this. That craft is unique to each individual.
Absolutely.
Your individual craft lands somewhere between the poles of technical, accurate, precision, execution, right? And embracing the intuitive, chaotic, emotional being that is human.
Yeah.
Somewhere in there, I lean more towards, that I love dealing with people. I love dealing with stories. I love dealing with tell me what your pains are in your business. Tell me what your hopes are. Tell me what those type of things. I like extracting the emotional side of it for the purpose of understanding how critical something is or what type of strategies or things I would deploy.
Yep.
Then others look at it from a lens of technical execution and data gaps and very specific items. Somewhere in there is your individual craft. And I think that it is our job to always be looking at our counterpole. Like wherever we lean, let's look to the other side to see where we can develop additional skill. And for myself, that is in AI. And the system itself, I think, is moving towards AI. But I would also caution that there are a lot of technically proficient and organizations, individuals that lean more towards that technical execution that could be strengthened by looking towards the opposite pole where AI is not currently, which is in that human culture side.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, Ryan, because I'm trying to think if it was Mark Cuban or it was one of the influencers like him. And I'm almost positive it was Mark Cuban that said this, but he said the studies art majors coming out of school now will maximize AI more because of their creative side, which is that whole you're talking about, more than the technical. And I was on with a guy who has been doing AI for 20 years, and he said the biggest misnomer, and again, this will be coming out in one of our future podcasts, but the biggest misnomer with AI is that people look at it and says it's an IT function, and it is absolutely not. That is the big, it's not something you offshore. It's not something you just do. It's something that has to be ingrained, to your point, to make us better. That's why they term the term co-pilot. We call them digital coworkers, right? AI is your digital coworker. How does it get you a little balance, like you said, of looking closer to that other pole? Wherever you are on that spectrum from technical to creative, if you can use AI the right way, you come to the middle, which makes everybody better, because you're right. You don't want to ever lose the human side, right? So, and people can get really, enamored with just too much efficiency and technical stuff, but that's not where the business moves.
Yeah.
Right.
Function. capabilities. They're big into just, I guess, linguistics. I guess you could say like word choice. It's about function. Right now, it's about function. It's about capability. It's about streamlining. It's about, there's those specific language terms, and we hear it a lot. I heard it a lot recently at a Workday conference. I can't tell you how many times I've heard the term leveraging AI, leveraging the power of AI, right?
Yeah.
So what if where AI needs to go is actually in organizations in their adoption of AI technology, from my perspective, would be embracing the current strengths of AI.
Yes.
And that's different than leveraging the power. Leveraging the power that can
the strengths.
actually, and we've seen that currently in the Workday had a reduction in force where there was a lot of incredible talent, product individuals that were impacted in a pursuit of investment for the AI, in leveraging the power of AI. But how are we able to embrace that some of the AI's strengths, and maybe through seeing where there are not strengths, that's actually where the development of AI should go, where it can't touch on those things. For myself, I use a lot of it in my content and my copy. As you probably are hearing, I can be tangential and I can run with my language. I can just run in a particular direction, and AI is like, I think we're off point. I think we're getting, as we try to chat GPT and codify this down, I'm like, well, there's a lot of disparate thoughts here. Wait, that is just a reflection of my mind. And so it actually has been a good, not just intentionally in creating content and getting good content out there, but actually as a test and a tool to my own self.
Like a sounding board, right?
Yeah, it's a sounding board of like, I did not mean it that way, but that's how the tool took it.
Right. Maybe I need to rewrite it a little bit.
Application. I got to rewrite it. I got to rethink about it, or it's really showing a gap in my thought process, because that is supposed to be its linear, copy, and it's spaghetti sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get it, because the cool part today is we're all learning it in different ways. I'm fortunate enough that I have a team that's playing with a lot of automations, and they're building things that are making life easier in a lot of things. And I look at it, Ryan, as, we want to use AI, to your point about strengths, right? The strengths of it right now, if you can use a tool like N8N or Maker and just build a workflow automation, right? It can take the menial tasks and just free you up, right? To me, that's where the strength is. I think people get a little overwhelmed right now about the capabilities, and I think you just have to simplify. Like, hey, like one of the things I challenge my clients to do, all right, is just look at your business right now and find one thing that, man, if I could just get that off my plate or get a big portion of it, I could free up 10 hours a week, right? Because I just spend or 5 hours a week, right? Something that moves the needle. And then you're like, okay, I now have a North Star that I can, that's a good pilot program. What's the next thing I can do? And it's an incremental thing. So I think a lot of folks think that they have to solve or boil the ocean, right? To use very generic term, but I don't think you need to do that. I think you just need to look at 2 or 3 use cases and just attack one at a time and just see. Because I do think you can really start to make your staff and yourself more productive just by doing it that way. Because almost everybody, I would say probably 2/3 of the people that I have as guests on the podcast are doing some form of what you're doing with it as a sounding board for content and communication. Because that everyone writes differently. So if you're writing an email, a lot of times, you want to write it and just say, hey, how would this be received on the other end? Because the way I think it's coming across and what the AI is saying it's coming across are not always the same, right? So that's kind of what your point.
But it's great to develop the prompt, even giving it the ability to. I mean, it's only as good as the prompt and questions. We all hear this all the time of what you give it, what you feed it, right?
Yes.
But I think that what we have is an interesting point that we're going to have with AI is its ability. It doesn't get tired. So how do we as human beings take in the efficiency and the production of what AI can do? And how are we complementary to that? How do we take that in? I have a quick story about this. This is kind of a funny story.
Yeah, tell it.
AI. Amber Lowry, my business partner, and I were doing a road trip back from Dallas, Fort Worth to Chattanooga, Tennessee. So it's about a 12-hour, I think it was, 12 or 14-hour drive. And whenever we're together, from the moment we wake up and we get our first cup of coffee, what have like we are spitballing ideas, and we love to work together.
As co-founders should, right?
We're yin and yang. Like
Yeah.
she drives and pushes, and she's risk oriented, and I'm risk averse, and I'm a reflective, and it's a great back and forth. And we started at 6 a.m. and we were just driving down and to talk about those other companies we were bringing up in formulating the product side of our business and potentially the management company side. So what we now call S3 partners. We were talking for all 10, 12 of those hours, just driving straight. No lunch. We just get caught up in those ideas.
Yeah.
Now, for me, at some point, I will reach my max. I'm done.
Yeah.
All right. And I need to have a no more. Like I can't take on anymore. I can't give out anymore. Like it's just nothing good is going to come out of this right now.
Right. You're at your limit. I totally get it.
With a little, bathroom stops and things like that, it's probably 9, 10 o'clock and we got on the road 6 a.m. and we're just about there. Amber is hardwired in a different way than I am. Amber will go until she does a hard reset overnight. Mm-hmm. So she will she can keep that pace, and I respect it so much. I cannot keep that same pace. It's incredible to watch, actually.
Yeah.
But there came a point in the drive where we're spitballing ideas for names of these other organizations.
Right.
And we're talking about, what could be a good name and all this stuff. But I hit my max and I needed to close my eyes and I put my seat back and I am just listening there. And she has now turned the conversation away from me to her phone in AI, just saying, I need 3 names that mean this type of thing or whatever. She's just giving prompts for the rest of this hour. And then she's turning, she's like, what do you think about these? And I'm saying, I don't have the capacity to actually give you any feedback on what AI is giving out to you in this moment.
Right.
So I think that is... But it was great because she was able to capture all of that and say, first thing in the morning, put a list of these, talking to her AI function and tool, put a list of these together for the first thing in the morning, sent them in a calendar invite to Ryan with the heading, just tasking it out. And that was really, really impactful. But I think that's a really interesting crossroads that we are going to have attention with for a long time is our ability to act on what its ability is to create in real time. And what does that push in our lives? I think is the next piece of that. How does that actually change our work? We know that the remote has changed a ton of our work, right?
Yeah.
Going remote from being on site it's no longer a 9 to 5. It's an 8 to 8.
It's totally changed everything.
You can't do it. Totally changes. So with this technology, how will it change our expectation of our own output? We're social creatures. We think of ourselves in relation to each other.
Yeah.
And we will develop a relationship with AI where we start looking at ourselves as inferior, or I can't do the same production as what this is doing, but it can't do the same. And then comparison comes in.
Right.
And so then it becomes more that AI will become more of a physical presence.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in that.
Me too. And it's exciting and scary all at the same time.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's funny. So if you think about it, right? So I did a lot in my earlier consulting days, did a lot of work with offshoring teams, right? Whether it was India or, Eastern Europe or whatever, and now South America. But the whole point of that, if you think back when it was the follow the sun model, right? When the team in the U.S. went to sleep, the team in India picked up, and then it was around the clock. AI will do that because you're like, it never gets tired, right? It's how and what do we have it doing that impacts our productivity, right? So to your point, and I think that will be a very interesting dynamic to watch over the next few years.
As we get the outputs of what it can do, and then we see the responsibility of what we have to do with the outcomes that it produces, I will be very interested to see the psychological impacts to the workforce on productivity and how productivity is designed and defined. It's very interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, Ryan, this has been phenomenal. I really appreciate you sharing all your insights. So, I'm going to ask you about I'm going to switch to the product company because I know how you're growing Syssero, and you're so relationship based, which is phenomenal. And, but yeah, I know that you guys are also launching your product company. And so, as you think about it, and I don't even know where you're at in your journey, but I know you probably have a 12-month goal, you and Amber, about that. And the reason I'm asking this question for everybody on the podcast knows that this is always the last question I ask. And it's because we want to pull the insights from as many founders and CEOs about growth as possible. So the question is, hypothetically, if I gave you a magic wand to
Okay.
let you use it to fix one thing that would help you either grow faster, scale faster, or something that you think is slowing you down that you could, maybe an obstacle you could get over, what would you use the magic wand for? It's not an easy question all the time,
It's
right?
not.
Because there's lots of different avenues you can go. And, I've had people, talk to me about the HR challenges. I've had people talk about just getting in front of their ideal prospects problem. It's all over the map. And sometimes there's regulation and compliance issues, right? I think the guy I had on a couple of days ago, that was his biggest challenge, right? The regulation in the renewable energy space keeps changing. Every time a new administration comes in, the rules change, their whole industry changes, right? So for you, products is probably a new thing for you guys. So what would that be?
Yeah, it's a tough question.
Yeah. Yeah. It's okay if you don't have a direct answer on that. That's fine.
No, I think the
Yeah.
direct answer that I have, I'm trying to think of how to say how you use ChatGPT right now and be like, how would I say
Yeah.
this? So here's my unvarnished, and then you could put it in ChatGPT just as an exercise and see exactly what comes out the other end. It's a magic wand, you said, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a magic wand. So
Magic wand.
it can do things
Yes. It can do things.
that
Yes.
may not be in the realm of reality, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I would use that magic wand to give all possible customers of Cicero, Syssix, Seneca, the ability to see through bullshit.
All right. So now you got to elaborate that a little bit because I
Right?
think I know what you're saying, but I want to make sure I get
We're
it.
in a competitive space,
Yeah.
and I never came from sales, Brent.
Right.
We have a strong reputation in the ecosystem that we've been prior to this past year, 90% direct referral. We want to stay small, grow responsibly. Growth is important. We want to grow and scale responsibly. And I think there are a lot of tactics of fear that are used in all parts of selling a story and a tale that really tough. What is that thing like hope and fear are the one things that are the two kind of arguments that really inspire action out of people, and fear being the greater one. And I see that oftentimes when I get into competitive scenarios where we're looking at other things, and here's the fear that I have of your people not knowing this or this thing over here or this thing over here, that it's used as a tactic. Fear is used as a tactic. So if I could just get rid of that and that is what I'm categorizing as the BS.
Yeah.
Is the fear. Of course, we all have risk.
Yeah.
In every facet of our life, we have risk. Right. In every facet of our business, we have risk. If we focus on the fear and we let the fear drive our action, I think it can really take us down a road of some bad decisions. And I see that a lot in this competitive Workday ecosystem from the services side. From the product side, it's a growing ecosystem. And in its growth, in order for others to take advantage of that possibility, I see fear used as a tactic. And I think we see fear used as a tactic all the time on various stages.
I really hope you can stay on the hope side because I feel like that's your bread and butter. I feel like it's how you've grown the company.
Possibility. You know, what an ideal future would look like. Ideas.
Right.
Opportunity.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. I'm always bullish. Glass half full.
That's what I mean when I say wave the magic wand, and I want everyone to be kind of free of that veil. That's what I mean, because it does inspire action.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we overspend, we overcommit, we commit in the wrong things when we're compelled by that as our predominant force.
Totally agree. Well said. Well, Ryan, like I said, thank you for all of your insights. Thanks for sharing. I can't wait to get this thing up and live. and we'll put all the links below, but tell them how to get in touch with any of the S3 companies.
Sure. You can follow us online. You can follow us on any one of our platforms. And then you have our website to get in contact with the various departments of us. It doesn't all sync to just a sales channel. If you want to talk to any of our people, that's something that's very unique about our organization. We're here. So getting a contact with us is primarily through the socials, primarily through the website, and then just direct call. We'll answer it.
Love it. Love it. Well, we'll have all that info below the podcast when it goes live. But Ryan, thank you for spending the time with us today. And that wraps up this episode of Future Proof. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.